Yep, that time of the month again, good old news recap. Welcome back everybody and a lot of new people, I hope you're doing all well. Since there are a ton of new eyes here, I thought it'd be necessary to give a quick rundown on how this show works. Pretty much, I compile what I find the most interesting news from the month and go through them all here. I try to have a nice range with what we talk about, and waiting for the month to wrap up allows me to see how stories fully develop. In this case, it's been a while since the last episode due to April and May being pretty light, so I decided to compile the best from both to make a full episode. This one's gonna be fun, so with that out the way, let's start the anime recap. As always, the licensing block to kick off the show with a few quick simple stories. The first being that the great and much beloved Keep Your Hand Off Eizouken from 2020 will finally be getting a physical Blu-ray release next month. It'll be out on July 25th and it's gonna have a brand new English dub too. But if you're a huge fan, you may want to wait since it's confirmed that it'll be getting a limited edition at a later date. And as someone who owns many from Sentai, trust me when I say they're usually worth it. But the big thing on everyone's mind is why did it take so long for this to come out? And why is Sentai releasing it when Crunchyroll can do it themselves? That's because in 2020, Crunchyroll was its own company who didn't have a way to release their catalog since they were just streaming. So their strategy was to make deals with certain companies who already did a specific kind of release to optimize profits. A lot of action series like God of High School and Jujutsu Kaisen would go to Viz Media since that's their bread and butter, while more lighthearted shows like Science Fell in Love, Run a Girlfriend, and Eizouken would go to Sentai. The thing is that immediately right after all those were locked in, Crunchyroll announced that it would be acquired by Sony's Funimation. What I think happened is that with all the new owners and buyouts, it put into question the deal since there were all of a sudden a lot more hands involved. And since the deal wasn't locked in at the moment, just that Crunchyroll was accepting the buyout, Viz and Sentai most likely just waited for the dust to settle to be safe. It's why a ton of shows took forever to release, but they're all out now, with Eizouken being the last. I wouldn't be surprised if CR was trying to get out of the deal after the buyout, since it sucks that a good chunk of the money made from the physicals are gonna go to Sentai, but that's just fun speculation. That part specifically, they are definitely not happy that a tiny company is gonna make bank off Eizouken. It was smart to go with them at the time since their limited editions aren't cheap and usually sell well. This overshadowed some of the other Blu-ray announcements, so let's speed through them. Call of the Night, which was one of my favorite anime from last year, is slated for September with a limited edition coming at a later date. Lupin Zero dropping that same month with no dub, marking this as the first modern entry to not have one. This is a weirder situation since TMS handles the dub, so this one might be permanent. Tokyo Mew Mew falling to the same fate, which is super surprising. This one is releasing on July 18th, but it's just weird since there are official tweets teasing the dub. Something dev happened behind the scenes since Sentai has never bailed out of doing one. Could be that its numbers on HIDIVE maybe weren't that good, but we're never gonna know. I do want to make it clear that this doesn't mean it's forever out of the question. They've gone back and dubbed shows that were released prior either because of how well it did or just because of fan request. But speaking of HIDIVE numbers, Oshi no Ko became the biggest launch of all time for the streamer, having the greatest number of streams as well as new subs, not only for the spring 2023 season, but of all time. This is amazing news for them since they've been quite unknown for the entirety of their existence. This boom of subs is great for someone on their scale that even if a fraction of the number of new accounts actually stay, it'll still heavily benefit them. They have a great selection, just less than ideal navigation, so if you can deal with that, I suggest trying them out. I'm always happy to see Sentai doing well in the current landscape, so I always gotta give them props. Some cool news for the retro anime fan, which I am very happy to see, is that Hideki Anno's Nadia Secret of Blue Water is now up on Retro Crush. Looks like it has the new G-Kids release, so that means it's the best looking version of the series now up for everyone to watch. Yeah, it's not on an easily accessible service, but in this case I think it's okay. It is a lesser known series that I think would have been buried if it was dumped on a platform flooded with a ton of modern anime. Anyone interested in it probably is already looking at older anime anyway, so it just makes sense to put it on a platform all about that. Retro Crush is pretty cool and has some free anime if you want to try it. Nadia looking like it's on the paid side, but I get it. I'm just happy it's up somewhere, and it gives me an excuse to plug Retro Crush. And last one, which is gonna seem pretty random and old, and you are correct since this is news from April, is that Heavenly Delusions has a dub and it's up on Hulu. This is just a reminder since Disney isn't promoting it. The entire situation of Disney Plus and Hulu has made it a mess to keep up with shows that don't fit the image of their platform. So just anime? They just dump all of that onto Hulu without giving anyone a heads up, so that makes me super excited about all the anime they've acquired. You know, it's not like you'll want them to do well by putting them on a more popular service. Just dumping them all on the worst one where you still have to deal with ads even after you pay for it. Am I still mad that I had to deal with a ton of ads to watch Ranma 1/2? Yes, very much. This is just a big reminder that anything Disney snags is up on Hulu, which you can access if you have Disney+. You'll still have ads though. Alright, time for a quick little industry block. First one is a little bit of an overlap with the prior, and that's because The Great Pretender, Studio Wit's big hit from 2020, is finally coming to Blu-ray later this year. The reason it's technically on the industry side is that the release is being done by All the Anime, a UK licensing company. This being the first time one of their releases is for the US market. With how much the landscape has changed, it does give Netflix less selection to find a way to release their anime over here, and it looks like their workaround is to go outside of the region. This is interesting since the question now is, how is this release gonna work? Will it be region free, which would make the most sense? Do a separate print that's only for the US? Do we have to buy it through their site, or will it be available through third-party sites? The release ain't coming anytime soon, so we're gonna have to wait, but it's cool to finally own another Netflix anime since they really don't like physical, and I mean that in general. It does make the current licensing situation more interesting since they really did think outside of the box to make sure their main competition, US companies, wouldn't get a bit of the monies. Wouldn't be surprised if this is the first of many collabs with All the Anime, and if each one is gonna be playable in the US, I have no complaints. Mainly doing the block for this great interview with the legendary director Mamoru Oshii. Shout out to Full Frontal Moe for catching up with him at the Niigata International Animation Film Festival, where he was a judge, the big takeaway from it being his thoughts on the current state of the anime industry, where he thinks it's stagnating with very little passion, thoughts he's made public before. He elaborated more, saying that at the moment, majority of what's being put out there looks the same, specifically for someone who's not super into animation. It all blends together from the character designs and colors, which sucks because in animation there's never-ending styles to choose from. And even though Japan does excel at some styles, that doesn't mean everything should look the same. There should be some unique look that fits that specific work and makes it more individualistic. But he's hyper aware of why this is happening. He knows there's still passion from creators, it's just more the industry follows where the money's at, and in the case of the majority of the market, viewers like familiar things. There's a lot more to his response, but I want to hop to a few other points from the interview. He did bring up that majority of the anime made now is just based on manga and light novels, and there are almost no original productions. That being the total opposite of what it was like when he was a young animator, where they could try something new every time they started a new project. He did also bring up Hideo Kojima and what he was doing with video games as something he was very interested in seeing where that goes, blending film in an interactive way that isn't possible normally. Also, getting to screen his film Skycrawlers made him quite happy. He did slip that he's currently working on another anime film, but we won't be seeing that for another 3 years. For real, check out the full interview since there's a lot of good stuff. Gonna end this with his favorite film from the festival being Kanza: The Well of Oblivion. And I totally get it. It looks fantastic with strong Journey inspirations. Every single frame from the trailer just looks like art. Gonna link it below since you should def keep your eye on it. But we ain't done there since it's the magical time of movie season. So from one animated film festival to another, we talking about Annecy. Happening in good old France, with a lot of creatives having either looks at their projects to downright screenings. So let's start with one that also serves as a recommend to your watch list. The director of Ongaku Art Sound, Kenji Iwasawa, announced that he's working on a new anime film titled Hina is Beautiful, showing off the early stages at the fest, with Naoyuki Asano being in charge of animation and design, who's best known for doing that for the Eva Rebuild films and Keep Your Hands Off Eizouken. The latter making a lot of sense when you see Onagaku's super simplistic yet loose style. We obviously don't know if it's gonna be the same style, but I hope it will since it looks charming and would be a great way to stand out. This is more to tell you to check out Ongaku since I've heard nothing but good things about it. This went super under the radar in 2020 but has only grown in notoriety ever since, being one of Lord & Miller's fave movies from 2021, and yes, I mean that Phil Lord and Chris Miller that everyone knows from the LEGO Movie, Spider-Verse, Clone High, and the list goes on. Like, they even did a hosting for it and presented it. They really love this movie. It was even on the goddamn Criterion channel. You know what was the other anime on there? Satoshi Kon's Millennium Actress. I am now aware that this is overlapping with the film side of me, so many might not know what any of this means. Pretty much it's a company that focuses on art films, and this movie is the only anime in there right now. So it's probably pretty good, and you guys should keep tabs on this director. Next one is that Naoko Yamada's new film, The Garden of Remembrance, got a screening over there. This is a biggie since she's the director of K-On!, A Silent Voice, and a bunch of other stuff, and is now collabing with Science Saru. We now have more info on it, like that it's a short 18-minute film and that there's no audio in it at all. Yamada stating that by removing it, it gives more interpretation to the audience as well as getting them to focus on the idiosyncrasies of the characters. It's used to get us to sympathize and empathize with them. The film is about grief, so I totally get why she's leaning into this direction. I personally love that she's going all in that film is a visual medium. Been waiting for this one and hopefully we'll see it soon. By the way, she did direct Heike Story if you want to see her first Science Saru collab. Next up, we got Mafinda being the first Afro anime film by Studio Enlight. And before anyone says that this isn't anime, the studio is based in Japan, so yeah. The studio combines black and indigenous backgrounds with veterans of anime. As you can see with the producers of the film being Mappa's Masao Murayama and Jisaburo Sugi, the one directing. Premise seems pretty cool about a girl who gets transported to a spiritual forest and must find her way home. Looks pretty dope, and luckily Annecy won't be the only place to see it since it's been licensed by G-Kids, so it's probably right around the corner. More movies where that applies to, and I mean immediately in this case. G-Kids is also busy bringing them to a theater near you. Usual Ghibli Fest update that the next two movies that are up for rotation are Nazca Valley of the Wind and Castle in the Sky. Both in July, switching between the two starting on July 9th to the 12th, which is a clever way to lump the sub and dub showings together if you want to go back to back. First 2 days is the dub for both, the second half being the sub. Nausicaa is the bomb, and I still haven't seen Castle in the Sky, so it seems like a perfect time. We'll link the page below for anyone interested that also shows what's upcoming in the lineup if you want to prep in advance. But that's the usual, so let's switch it up with something lesser known. The new film, Lonely Castle in the Mirror, is only gonna be in theaters from June 21st and 22nd. About a girl who gets transported to a castle with 6 other students, where they have to play a game by a girl in a wolf's mask, but if anyone breaks the rules, they'll get eaten. There's obviously more to it, and I'm gonna link the trailer below, but if I'm being honest, I don't think it does a good job in selling the movie. The art looks great, and the concept intrigues me, especially when you see the director's previous work. I'm def gonna catch it since I love limited run season, and it's kinda my thing to watch these type of anime. I always gotta plug these smaller movies, so check it out if it's up your alley. Again, we'll be in theaters on the 21st and 22nd, dub and sub. Slight little pivot, another movie is getting dumped into theaters, and I am specifically using the word dumped since Sony, not Crunchyroll, announced that Psycho Pass Providence will be in select theaters on July 14th. Yeah, this was part of a press release reported by Deadline, so if you didn't know about this, trust me, you're not the only one. I'm super behind on the series because of whatever the hell season 2 was, so I'm gonna have to pass on this one. But if you're a big fan, check your local listings to see if it's airing near you. I do want to stress that limited runs are a big thing for G-Kids, so they usually do a good job in getting a decent amount of theaters involved. I can't really say the same for Sony, since I'm not sure if they've done this before. And again, when you do it like this, it feels like they're dumping it to fill a gap in their release schedule, especially when you see it's out 2 days after the new Mission Impossible. Again, July 14th is the only day you'll be able to see it on the big screen, so keep tabs on it. Alright, time for something big. Check this out.
Miyagi-kun, ここは君の舞台ですよ。不確かな夢から得るのさ、約束の夜に。行け！
The legendary Takehiko Inoue is back with the first slam dunk, out here pulling a Miyazaki and making his directorial debut to adapt his manga to the big screen. To be precise, the final match of the entire series. Something fans have been wanting for over a decade. And I really love that. Instead of making a movie to be accessible for newcomers, it's primarily for them. Managing to be so satisfying because of how it handles the material. Cutting stuff to make it work in the movie format, which would make sense with Inoue directing. From what I've seen online, it looks like he really pulled it off since it's apparently great for someone even if they don't know anything about Slam Dunk. And since I'm talking about the online chatter, I want to bring up the one saying it looks really bad because it's CG. I want to preface this annoyed breakdown with that I've never watched or read Slam Dunk. I know I have to, it's on my ever-growing list. So all my thoughts are completely unbiased to the creator and the series. Alright, we good? We good? Okay. The look going for pencil sketch cell shading, and as you can see, it looks goddamn beautiful. The lighting on the bodies looking like brushstrokes with a lot of the other details being drawn on top, like the hair and the line work being my favorite things. Everything having a slightly messy, thick outline to give them so much readability on screen but makes them look like drawings brought to life. Going for this style wasn't just fashion but also function, since it blends the 2D animated parts of the movie a lot better with the 3D. The backgrounds just straight up look like paintings, they look so good. Also allowing them to smudge them in a way to hide the accursed CG background characters that plague anime. Leaning into it when the camera moves to replicate motion blur. They even draw dash lines on the model to convey the speed, like the colors can barely keep up with them. Their hair being one color with strokes of another to give it detail. Any goddamn frame from this movie just looks like a painting with animation looking weighty yet fluid due to rocking some lower frame rate animation. For real, it just makes me happy when animation just leans into the medium as much as possible. And the first Slam Dunk is doing that in spades. And if you're hyped to check it out, you'll be able to do that next month thanks to GKIDS, who's picked it up and will be presenting it at Anime Expo on July 3rd. But with a recent placeholder listing via AMC, it looks like it's gonna be everywhere starting July 28th. Which I can say from experience that those are always accurate. The later date might be for them to wrap up the dub since the premiere is sub only. I've already shown my love for the animation and art, and I can only imagine what it'll look like on the big screen, so if you're interested, don't miss the biggest anime release of the summer. And the best part, this doesn't just apply to the US since all the anime picked it up for the UK, slated for August 30th. So everyone will be able to enjoy this amazing looking film. Thankfully, the practice of cel shading is getting picked up more with the trailer for the Sandland movie. If the art looks familiar, that's because this is one of Toriyama's other mangas. This is huge since the last time we got a non-Dragon Ball adaptation was over 20 years ago. It was the second Dr. Slump anime in '97. Don't know much about it, but I will def watch since I've always loved his style, and that without Dragon Ball is very much my jam. That translated really well, most likely due to Kamikaze Doga co-producing it, who's always killed it with CG animation like Batman Ninja, their Star Wars Visions episode, and the JoJo openings. And lastly, we have a poster for Miyazaki's next film, How Do You Live? This is more of a lie since this was released a while ago. The actual news is that this will be the only promotional image for the movie. There's not going to be a trailer, synopsis, nothing, keeping us totally in the dark till the already set release date of July 14th in Japan. I really dig the confidence since it just screams, "Shut up, we know you're watching this." And it's something only Ghibli can do since they made such a name for themselves. It's such a power move that shows they really don't want us to be spoiled, and it looks like it worked since the online talk has shown everyone being down with it. Especially because it is Miyazaki directing it. My question is, what's gonna happen when it gets picked up for international releases? Are the companies gonna do the same thing or go against his wishes on how to handle the film? Hopefully we can get an answer to that real soon because it sucks that we still have to wait for it. And that's it for the anime recap. We're wrapping up a little early today since it just felt like a good place to do so. A lot of movie talk, so tell me your thoughts on all of it below because I love to read them. Are you gonna try to catch any of them in theaters? If so, everything will be linked below. But as always, bye guys, thanks for watching, and I hope to see you in the next one.